hadn't known all the stigmas and archetypes that so many women of Asian descent specifically had faced until many, many years later.
Meghan Markle came back with a bang in her first Archetypes podcast after a month break following Queen Elizabeth's death. In the latest episode of her new podcast, the Duchess of Sussex took aim at Hollywood for promoting Asian American stereotypes. She criticized Mike Myers' Austin Powers and Quentin Tarantino's Kill Bill for caricaturing Asian women as over-sexualized or aggressive.
Those terms, those ideas, those stereotypes, they weren't familiar to me. Like the ones we see in so many movies and throughout pop culture.
Your name is?
Fukumi.
Oh, behave, baby.
The price you pay for bringing up either my Chinese or American heritage as a negative is I collect your head.
Movies like Austin Powers and Kill Bill, they presented these caricatures of women of Asian descent as oftentimes over-sexualized or aggressive. And it's not just those two examples, there's so many more. But by the way, I'm not the only one who's taken notice.
Meghan went on to explore the quote dragon lady stereotype with comedian Margaret Cho.
Do you want to walk us through what the origin of Dragon Lady is?
Well, Dragon Lady really comes from this sort of fantasy of Orientalism. It's actually a character that it's similar to the femme fatale in that, a woman who is beautiful and deadly. Because we can't just be beautiful. We have to have, it has to come at a cost. And it's kind of like Evil Queen adjacent, but it's also so pinned to this idea that Asianness is an inherent threat, that our foreignness is somehow gonna get you. The mystery and the exoticism of it is part of it. And unfortunately, that trope has really stuck to film, but also to Asian American women or Asian women.
Later on in the podcast, the 41-year-old mom of two also spoke with broadcast journalist Lisa Ling, and she shared about a time she experienced sexualized racism in her place of work.
While I was at Channel One, Rolling Stone magazine every year had an issue called the Hot List. And I was named Hot Reporter one year. And it was so exciting for me. I'm this country bumpkin kid from a suburb of Sacramento. And here I am, Rolling Stone has just named me Hot Reporter. And it was such a moment for me. And someone at my place of work cut out that article, drew slanted eyes over the eyes, wrote, "Yeah, right," and then put it back in my mailbox.
Oh my gosh.
And when I retrieved that from my mailbox, it was like every kernel of excitement that I possessed just withered away. It was so devastating that someone that I would see every day in my place of work where I was supposed to feel comfortable just harbored those feelings about me and had the nerve to make it racial.
Right.
Meghan's latest podcast episode comes as she recently hired a fact checker, American writer Nicole Pasulka, to help her out. Daily Mail's Richard Eden weighed in on the Duchess of Sussex's move, saying, Meghan hasn't chosen a run-of-the-mill recruit, but a young and highly talented American writer, Nicole Pasulka, whose interests closely mirror her own. The royal expert also added that there is currently, quote, no suggestion that Meghan will rope in Nicole for any other project besides the podcast. Besides getting back into her Archetypes podcast after a sabbatical due to the Queen's death, Meghan was also recently profiled by The Cut. Access Hollywood spoke with DailyMail.com's Charlie Langston about her podcast, the article, and much more.
The reaction to Meghan's two podcast episode it's been, again, very varied. I think there are a lot of people listening in out of pure fascination, because even though there is boredom beginning to emerge over this continued anti-royal narrative, there's also continued fascination with just how this whole thing is going to pan out. And I think people are waiting for Meghan to offer up some kind of new information, whether that be a resolution, a kind of, peace meeting with members of the royal family. I don't know what that will be, but I think that the interest and the intrigue is still there. And that's partly why her podcast immediately shot to the top of the Spotify charts, even beating Joe Rogan. However, there has been some incredibly harsh criticism of the podcast. A lot of people have pointed out that given that the podcast is meant to highlight other women, Meghan spends a large amount of time talking about her own experiences and her own life, which seems to be slightly ironic, given that the entire premise of the series is to kind of interview other great women who have done amazing things. Now, that's not to deny that she hasn't managed to land some very big names. In 2 episodes, we've had Serena Williams and we've had Mariah Carey. So I don't think there's any doubt about Meghan's ability to draw in some star power. The main criticism is just that a lot of people wish she would spend more time focusing on the other stars rather than on herself.